Okay, so now by paying attention so far, you've already made your child enormously safer around the water. Now, how do you prevent that other major danger, choking? Well, here are two families' answers.
Broccoli. Max loves broccoli. He absolutely loves it. He eats it all the time. Broccoli. Max was sitting in his high chair, eating lunch. He was very excited. Broccoli, broccoli. Shoving it in his mouth. And I turned to the table to get some more food for him, and I looked back and he had a bit of a weird look on his face. And whenever he looks somewhat not right, I always ask him to say mama while he's eating. And he tried to say it. I could see him trying to say it, but it couldn't come out. So I realized that he was likely choking. So I pulled him out of the high chair, and I had recently taken a CPR Heimlich class. And so I flipped him forward facing, and I did the Heimlich maneuver 4 or 5 times, and eventually it came up, and he started kind of coughing a little bit and crying for maybe 5 or 10 seconds, and then he looked up and he said, broccoli.
Let's go in the car.
Now when I think back on it, I still get the shivers. I still realize it could have gone a completely different way. Since it happened, I do feed him with a little bit more of an eagle eye. And, every so often I do my little mama trick. Max, say mama. And, it's like music to your ears, and he's like, mama. And I'm like, you're fine. Keep going. Have a great meal.
The piece was about maybe this big that I ate. I said to myself, whoa. When I put that in my mouth, I'm like, I need to chew this, but somehow it got around all the other food I was chewing and went down my throat. I started to gag a little bit, started to choke. I panicked, I looked around everywhere, and I went to nearest lunch lady, which was lunch lady Mrs. Nardi. I was going like this, like the universal choke sign, to tell her that I was choking.
And then I saw Mrs. Nardi was doing the Heimlich maneuver. I thought she was just playing for fun or something. But then when she wasn't stopping, I ran over. But when I just got over, the waffle just popped out. And I just saw Joe's face was pale and blue. It was bump, and then he spit out the waffle.
Yeah, it just came up.
My feeling why he choked from watching him eat all these years is that he took off too much and he eats too fast.
I am much safer now, like chewing my food. I don't take animal bites like I used to. Non-human bites. My mom always says, chew your food. Don't take that much at a time, just take it slow.
Well, that's right. And Joe and his mom, Jean DiMaria, are here with us right now. And Jean, what's the lesson for parents?
The lesson for parents is that they should talk to the people that run the schools and make sure that the lunch people are trained in CPR and the Heimlich maneuver.
Joe, how did you realize that you were choking and you gave that sign of choking? How did you know about that?
Well, maybe about 2 or 3 days before, in health class, we were learning about the respiratory system, and somebody asked a question about choking or something like that, and my health teacher, he said that this was the choke sign.
And you were paying attention, weren't you?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
well, we're going to show you a little bit later on how to actually do the Heimlich maneuver, and we're going to be using you to do that. But Jeff, exactly what happens when a person chokes?
Well, there are 2 tubes that start in the back of the throat. One of them is the esophagus. That's the tube that connects the mouth to the stomach where the food goes down. And the other tube is the trachea, the windpipe, and that gets air from your mouth into your lungs. The tubes sit right next to each other, and there's a little covering over the trachea that's called the epiglottis that prevents the food from getting down into the windpipe, so that when you swallow, that moves those tubes up, and the overhang there allows the food to pass into the stomach and not into the windpipe. However, if a piece of food or a toy or an object is so big, it can actually occlude or block both of those tubes. And if it's very small, and especially if a child is doing something else at the table while they're eating, that piece of food or nut or what have you can get down into the trachea and go in and block the lungs.
Well, let's go over some of the signs that a person is actually choking.
Well, you've already heard about the universal choking sign, which clearly worked, Joe's case. But the other signs include coughing. Sometimes you'll turn blue, stridor, which is a noise, a very high-pitched noise that you make when you take a deep breath. These are all signs that you are choking.
For someone who's looking at someone who looks like they're choking, when do you intervene?
As long as the person is choking, they're trying to, coughing, they're trying to make air movement out of their lungs to try to dislodge the object. However, if that coughing becomes ineffective, or if they turn blue, or certainly if they lose consciousness, that's the time where you need to intervene.
Well, Lynn, let's talk about prevention. What are some of the dangerous foods that parents need to be aware of?
Well, some of the more common foods that we give younger children are displayed on this table, and before we prepare food, I want parents to think of the windpipe as about as big as a straw. So any type of food that you serve your child should not plug up or occlude the straw. For example, if you look at the peanut butter, this is like glue. This will easily occlude a straw. Hard candy. When it comes to celery and carrots, I would probably avoid giving a younger child celery. Carrots can be safely given to a child if they're soft and cooked and sliced in small little pieces. Grapes as well have to be cut at least in half, preferably in quarters. Right. And last but not least is hot dogs. And the best way to do that is to slice it down the middle and then again down the middle into quarters and then dice it in little pieces. And
I know I've personally seen, I'm sure you have, Jeff, too, kids choking on peanuts.
Peanuts are in particular for a lot of reasons. They resemble a bullet. They easily get into the windpipe and they're very difficult to dislodge. So they're
Well, we have some tips for safe eating, right? And it really boils down to what Mom used to say about good old table manners. Let's go through some of those.
Well, first of all, what we'd like to do is have the child in an unrushed environment, calm, and preferably chew your food, take small bites, try not to laugh and carry on and talk too much at the table.
Yeah. Everything Mom told you when you were a little kid, it's all coming back, right? Jeff, toys and other household items can be dangerous too, and you've actually brought some photos to show us of what you've seen.
Yeah, exactly. Toys are a big problem, and for a variety of reasons. One of them is that sometimes a toy meant for an older child being played with an older child can actually come in the hands of a younger child. One of the unfortunate situations that I dealt with was with a 3-year-old child who was playing with his 6-month-old brother. And the 6-month-old brother picked up that toy, put it in the mouth, and it lodged in the back of the mouth. And unfortunately, by the time the child had been brought to us in the emergency department, we were unable to resuscitate the child. It brings up another point, that you should look at the toys that you have. Sometimes toys are out of date. In this particular case, the toy manufacturer changed the shape of the toy to prevent this from happening in the future. But if you didn't get that toy out of your house, that's still a choking hazard.
That's right.
And basically, any toy that a child can come into contact with, if it's small enough, can get lodged into either the back of the throat or even into the windpipe. An example of it is a child with a jack, for instance, here that is shown sitting in the windpipe. One good handy rule of thumb would be to take a toilet paper roll and see whether or not the toy fits in that roll. If it does, that's a potential choking hazard.
And then let's talk about latex balloons. Everybody plays with latex balloons, They can be dangerous too.
It's very unsuspecting. Either children will eat them or in the process of trying to blow them up. Very often they'll get sucked into the windpipe and they cause a nice little shield over the top, and it's very difficult to remove. So please don't have children with balloons.
Yeah. Well, Joe, why don't you walk over here and help us demonstrate what to do if a child is choking. And once again, that means that they cannot speak. And in that case, you'll want to perform the Heimlich maneuver. And Lynn is going to show us how to do it on Joe.
Okay, so being that he can't breathe, he can't call for help, so he will have the universal sign of choking. The first thing you should do is ask him if they can talk. Can you speak? He'll say no. Tell him I'm going to help him, and I will get behind him, feel for his little belly button or navel, take the heel of my hand, make a fist, grab my fist, and in upward strokes, push up, and continue until the object is dislodged or if he becomes unconscious.
Yeah. Good job.
Thank you.
You did a very good job. And you also can demonstrate this on an infant as well.
Right. The management of an occluded airway in infants up to 1 year of age is a little bit different. I'm going to give you a quick demonstration, but I urge you to take the class. Now infants are not going to be able to grab their throats like a bigger child would, so they'll look startled, they may not be crying. If you suspect that the child has a problem with his airway, please don't cover their nose and mouth. Make a little V with your fingers, turn them down, support their head and support them on your leg. Between their shoulder blade with the heel of your hands, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold and support their head. Again, between the nipples, a little bit below, 2 fingers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This would all be demonstrated in a CPR class for infants and children.
Yeah, and again, it's so different when it's actually happening in real life, so it's so important, you know, to learn it. And finally, and this is so important, please take a life-saving class and learn CPR. Take it with your spouse and make sure that anybody who cares for your children is certified as well. Now, for more information, please check out the National Center for Injury Prevention and Control, and their website is cdc.gov/NCIPC. And there's also Safe Kids Worldwide website, and that's safekids.org, or you can call them at 202-662-0600. And Stu Leonard III's Water Safety Foundation's website is stuleonards.com, or you can call 1-800-729-7839. And I want to thank all of you so much for being here on the show and sharing and being a model, doing such a great job. And we will see you next time on Keeping Kids Healthy.